Welcome to the training video on crafting survey questions for Sec 2 Geographical Investigation. In today's video, we will be looking at how you conduct surveys, interviews, as well as how do you actually go about crafting the questions that you use for such interviews and surveys. So functionality, what is a survey for? A survey is basically used to gather data on a few things: people's behavior, their needs, and their opinions. So the purpose is to get actual data which needs to be interpreted, needs to be processed by the surveyor before you can use the data to either validate a hypothesis that you have or to nullify the hypothesis that you came up with. Alternatively, it can also give you information upon which you can tweak your response and create a better solution. How can you conduct surveys then? There are a couple of ways. Firstly is to conduct a questionnaire. Secondly, you can also conduct an interview. Now, the degree of involvement of the participant varies greatly between the questionnaire and the interview. If you would like to see examples of how an interview is actually conducted, you can visit this tiny URL, tinyurl.com S2GI interview. This will give you access to how interviews were conducted with a group of foreign workers who are working in Singapore, who would then proceed to give you an account of their conditions, the work conditions, and whether they are actually happy in Singapore. So this shows you how data can be collected through interviews, and how actually it gives you a deeper and more vivid view with specific examples. Okay, so the key difference between the data collected between questionnaires and interviews is questionnaires tend to give you data for percentiles, for quick analysis, but for an interview, you're looking for specific examples, details, things that are more personal. So your task, right, we will need your group to craft a questionnaire to find out more, okay, about what makes the place in the neighborhood inclusive to its residents. So in our GI case here, we are looking at what are the inclusive features, right, that are found within Tiong Bahru that would make it inclusive to the residents in the area. So even though you are not actually going to be conducting the interview, because our GI for Sec 2 this year is done through the VR package, it is useful to go through this process as a team so that your individual GI log, when you submit the GI log for your team, you will have your 10 questions. So your task, okay, we're not doing this in lesson time. This is time that you need to craft out with your group members. You can do this sometime during the June holidays, or you can use the first 2 weeks before the submission date to finish this. Preferably, you should do this online if you're doing it on the June holidays. Instead of 15 questions, we've decided to cut it down to 10 good questions of various types. So your team will need to come up with the 10 good questions for the survey that you are going to conduct. Whether it's a questionnaire or it's an interview, 10 good questions. So bear in mind, the objective of the survey is to identify what are some places that makes it inclusive to the residents. Okay, so after you've actually explored Tiong Bahru, the VR package, you would have a better idea of some of these things that you could find, and so you may want to interview people based on what you have seen. Okay, now this component here, the reduction into 10 questions is done like this. So originally, as you see on the slide here, it says limit your questionnaire to 5 questions pertaining to the profile of the respondents. Now we have decided to give you these 5 questions. So what you need to come up with is just the 10 questions pertaining to the GI question. Okay, so you are not going to be needing to spend 5 questions on profile differentiation. So later on, I will show you what I mean. So when you are conducting a survey, right? So you take a look at question 1, question 2, question 3, and 1, 2, and 3 in this particular survey here. What you do see is things that will give you information about this particular respondent. Okay, so important thing to note: always have a title and an introduction. Always ask for one piece of information at a time. So each question should not deal with more than one piece of information or one area of data that you're looking for. Always provide options for sensitive questions. right? Give a range because some people are just not comfortable telling you their age or maybe how much do they live or exactly which sector of Tiong Bahru they live in. So give them a range, an opportunity to be a bit more ambiguous, just like sometimes when you are giving feedback, you like it to be anonymous. Similarly, this should be the case, or this should be an option given to your respondents. So keep it short and simple, right? Try to use close response questions. Okay, you can give them options, list answers. You can give them Likert scale, okay, rank questions using a Likert scale. And of course, you are also encouraged to have one or two open response questions where you can then use these to elicit some specific data. Since we are doing a questionnaire, we're not doing an interview. Now, to understand the purpose of different types of survey, well, we're going to bring you through some of these. So if you have list answers, what are we looking for? We are looking for specific responses that we have already predetermined. So if you look at this example here, right, you give them specific things for them to tick, for them to choose. Sometimes you give them an option to choose more than one. Sometimes you limit the option to just one. Pick the most appropriate answer. Now, in this case here, if you look at the very bottom, they give an option called others, and then there's a blank. So this is a good survey question because you give them even the opportunity to write down things that may not be found within your option choices. So you understand that your option choices is non-exhaustive and you're willing to take an alternate example or an alternate answer that they could possibly provide for you. So the others component is useful. Type 2, using the Likert scale, it means that you give them a range for them to pick from strongly disagree to strongly agree. So like the question here, I'm looking forward to the geography module this semester. How far do you agree with this? Right? Then they not only need to tell you yes or no, they are able to give you a degree of accuracy. How much yes or how much no. But bear in mind that if you have an odd number Likert scale, or scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 7, right, you will have a large amount of people who will pick the safe option, which is the middle, which is 3. So sometimes to avoid that, because telling me that I neither agree nor disagree, and neither it doesn't really help the data. So you may want to force them into doing taking a stand by having only even number in your Likert scale. So 1 to 4, either disagree or agree, or 1 to 6, right? Either disagree or agree. Type 3 is of course ranking. You can ask them to rank, give them a few choices and ask them to rank them in terms of their preference. And this will also give you an overall idea of what is the more popular choice, what is the choice that most people are okay with. So this is important as well. Open-ended response, like we mentioned earlier, you can not only provide it in terms of having fixed response with an others component, you can have a couple of questions that actually intentionally encourage them to give you their own opinion, their own examples. And these at times may enrich your data because they give you anecdotal evidence to put in to substantiate specific areas. So how do you actually do this? You give them a line and you tell them they can fill in the blank with whatever information they feel is necessary to complete their expression of their opinion. Now, moving on to data analysis, after you have collected all these data, especially the quantitative ones where you have numbers, you have percentiles, you have 50% say yes, 50% say no, or you have how many percent of people strongly agree, strongly disagree. This is useful because this allows you to then collate all the information and look at what is the general trend that may exist. So let's take a look at this, the bar graph here that says, I want to be a better geography student this semester. Actually, most of them have selected 5, which is strongly agree. Okay, over 64.1% of them have expressed that they do want to be a better geography student. Right, and actually nobody said they want to be, they don't want to, because nobody had voted in the strongly disagree component. However, if you look at it, can we say safely that everybody who was interviewed wants to be a better geography student to different degrees? You can't, because actually you have one candidate who picked disagree and 4 candidates who said they don't know. Okay, neither agree nor disagree. So the 2 and 3 are data sets that tell you that hey, maybe there is not enough convincing that's done on the lessons itself. I'm not able to engage every single one of them. So you do have some who don't want to be a better geography student this semester. Knowing this information is useful for the teacher, so you are able to then find out what maybe there are certain areas that you could improve on in terms of lesson, in terms of engagement, in terms of being a bit more firm with the kids so that they all claim that they want to be a better student next semester. So data is data. Data gives you evidence to support or to debunk whatever hypothesis that you're working with. Okay, so I would at this moment in time try to want to issue a caveat or a warning to everyone, because you don't deal with a lot of data in your life yet. But bear in mind that data is only valuable because it serves to help you argue your point across. And when you're dealing with data that people are providing as supporting evidence, you have to understand data has two sides, right? It's not only what is shown to you, it is actually more importantly what is hidden away from you that could be telling a very important story. So I give you an example. When you score 52% out of 100, okay, you score 52 out of 100 for your geography WA3, right? If you go home and you tell your mother I scored 52%, you probably get telling to, right? Because you scored 52%, that's not good. However, if your 52% is the top score in your class, what would you choose to go back and tell them? Would you tell them I scored 52%, or will you tell them I topped the class in geog? Right? Technically, you're not lying either ways, but withholding or with representation of your data using a different lens or different presentation mode, you actually make something that's not palatable much more bearable. Okay, so bear in mind it with data, right? You have as a thinking student, as a geographical student, as a student of geography, you have to be aware of this, right? Data is useful not only in what they show you, but in understanding what is hidden away from you, right? So hopefully we've shown you how data collected can help you understand certain issues, can help you develop or come up with better strategies to address certain issues. Okay, so for the construction of the survey component in your GI, in your groups, right, you need to craft the survey form. You need to try to give us different types of survey questions, okay, to find out relevant information that may help us identify best strategies in terms of deciding whether Tiong Bahru has enough inclusive features to make the citizens or the residents in the area feel included. Now, although you will not be doing this in person for this year, bear in mind that if you continue to pursue geography in upper sec or beyond upper sec level in your tertiary education, doing survey data and interviews is going to be part and parcel of your life. So here are some pointers. Be polite and respectful when you speak to others. Always greet the respondent and introduce yourself very clearly. Okay, not I am so and so. Yeah, it's I am so and so from Crescent Girls' School or whichever institution you're representing in the future. Right, state the purpose of your interview. We're doing a survey on resident emotions. We're doing a survey on the level of inclusiveness you feel as a resident in Tiong Bahru. Okay, state the estimated time. Could I have 3 minutes of your time? Don't tell them you want 3 minutes and use 30 minutes, okay? They will be very upset with you and they may walk off in the middle of the interview because they have no time. Ask for permission to do the interview. If they say no, let them go. I repeat, if they say no, let them go. Let it sink in. Assure them the responses are confidential and are used only for the matters of internal school research, and you are not to sell the information to a third party. Okay, jot down responses as quickly as you can. If you are going to do a recording of their response, alert the interviewee first. Okay, you are not to initiate the recording without giving them a heads up. It is rude. Okay. Lastly, ask questions to clarify your doubts. If in the process of conducting the interview, certain things are not clear, ask questions. Okay, be polite about it. It's better to ask questions now than to misrepresent them in your data extraction process. So these are your common pointers on how you should conduct a survey or interview in the future. Your survey form, the GI component, the submission, your group has to do this. You have to come up with 10 questions. Okay, just 10 questions. Right, so if you look at your GI log, you will find the 10 questions, the space for you to fill in the 10 questions at the end. So with that, I've come to the end of this briefing. Hope you enjoy it and hope you have a fruitful GI process.